The text on Sarah Miller's medical chart blurred as her hands trembled. Terminal. 6 months at most. The words echoed in her mind as she stared at Dr. Reynolds, who had just delivered the diagnosis she never expected at 45. Outside the window of the sterile hospital room, Manhattan's skyline glittered indifferently, a cruel contrast to the darkness now consuming her future. She had finally found professional success as the city's top architectural restoration specialist, but what did any of that matter now? There must be some mistake, she whispered, her voice breaking. The doctor's sympathetic expression confirmed there wasn't. Who can I even tell? There's no one. That was the most devastating truth. After dedicating her life to her career, pushing away anyone who tried to get close, Sarah faced death completely alone. Her tight grip crumpled the medical report as a single tear traced down her cheek. She had exactly one major project left to complete, the restoration of the historic Thornfield Building, owned by 32-year-old tech billionaire James Thornfield. How could she possibly tell him she wouldn't be able to finish his family's legacy project? James Thornfield strode into the architectural firm's conference room the next morning, his confident presence immediately commanding attention. At 32, his revolutionary AI software had made him one of the youngest billionaires in the country. But beneath the polished exterior and razor-sharp wit that charmed everyone around him, James carried his own burden, a promise to his late grandmother to restore the building that bore their family name. When Sarah didn't appear for their scheduled meeting, his characteristic smile faded. "Where is Ms. Miller? This project means everything to me, and if she's not taking it seriously. If you're enjoying this story of unexpected connection, hit that like button to let me know." Sarah arrived 20 minutes late, her usually immaculate appearance slightly disheveled. "I apologize for my tardiness, Mr. Thornfield," she said formally, avoiding his penetrating gaze. The tension between them was immediate and electric. James studied her face, noticing the slight redness around her eyes and the uncharacteristic paleness of her complexion. "Are you all right, Ms. Miller?" he asked, genuine concern replacing his initial irritation. "Perfectly fine," she replied too quickly. "Let's focus on the Thornfield restoration timeline. I've revised it to accelerate completion." She couldn't tell him why, that she needed to finish this project before her time ran out. James wasn't convinced. Throughout the presentation, he observed how her hands occasionally trembled, how she seemed to be holding herself together through sheer willpower. When the meeting concluded and the other team members filed out, he deliberately lingered. "Sarah," he said, dropping the formality. "Something's wrong. I'd like to help if I can." "You can't help me, Mr. Thornfield," she said, gathering her papers with forced efficiency. "And I'm far too old to be the kind of woman a man like you helps anyway." His eyebrow raised. "A man like me? And too old? I'm interested in your expertise, Ms. Miller. Your age is irrelevant. 32 to 45. 13 years is more than irrelevant in our world, Mr. Thornfield." She tried to move past him, but he gently caught her arm. "James," he corrected. "And I think you're making assumptions about me that aren't fair." Their eyes locked in a silent challenge, and for a moment, Sarah felt something stir within her that she thought had long been buried, a dangerous spark of connection. Over the next few weeks, Sarah threw herself into the Thornfield project with obsessive intensity, working punishing hours while secretly attending chemotherapy sessions. She had decided against telling anyone about her diagnosis. What was the point? Her only goal now was to complete this final masterpiece. But James Thornfield proved impossible to avoid. He appeared at the construction site regularly, his sharp eyes missing nothing, including the days when she was clearly struggling. One evening, as Sarah reviewed blueprints alone in the partially renovated ballroom, James arrived unexpectedly with dinner. "You're working too hard," he said simply, setting out containers of food from the city's finest restaurant. "I don't need your charity," she replied stiffly. "Good, because this isn't charity. It's dinner with someone I admire professionally and am growing to like personally." His disarming smile cracked her defenses. As they ate beneath the skeletal chandelier that would someday gleam again, their conversation flowed from architecture to art to their personal histories, though Sarah carefully edited hers, omitting any mention of her illness. "Why architecture restoration?" he asked, studying her with genuine interest. "I believe in second chances," she said softly. "These buildings, everyone has written them off as past their prime, destined for demolition. But with the right care, they can be more beautiful in their restoration than they ever were originally." She paused, realizing she'd revealed more about herself than intended. James leaned forward. "And what about you, Sarah? Do you believe in second chances for yourself?" The question hit too close to her secret. "I think some things can't be restored once they're broken," she whispered, rising abruptly. "I should go." Sarah, wait, but she was already hurrying away, leaving James staring after her with determination setting in his jawline. He wasn't a man accustomed to giving up easily. Loving this story? Comment below with your favorite moment so far and subscribe for more heartfelt content. The following day, Sarah collapsed at the construction site. James happened to be there, catching her before she hit the ground. When she regained consciousness in the hospital, he was sitting beside her bed, his face a mask of worry and something deeper. The doctor had already told him everything. "Why didn't you tell me?" he asked, his voice rough with emotion. Sarah turned away. "It's my burden to bear. And it doesn't change anything, I'm still going to finish your building." "Damn the building." His unexpected outburst made her turn back to him. "I care about you, Sarah. These past weeks, getting to know you. I've never met anyone like you." She laughed bitterly. "A dying woman? A woman who sees beauty where others see decay. A woman who fights for lost causes. A woman I'm falling in love with." The monitor beside her bed betrayed her racing heart. "That's ridiculous. You're young, successful, handsome, you could have anyone. And I'm extraordinary," he finished for her. "Age is just a number, Sarah. And as for your diagnosis, I refuse to accept it as the end. My company has been funding experimental treatment research. I want you to try it." "Why would you do that for me?" she whispered. His hand found hers. "Because some things are worth fighting for, even against impossible odds." For the first time since her diagnosis, Sarah felt something dangerous bloom in her heart, hope. As autumn turned to winter, Sarah reluctantly agreed to the experimental treatment James had arranged. Between sessions, they continued working on the Thornfield restoration, their professional relationship evolving into something neither had anticipated. James's playful banter drew reluctant smiles from Sarah even on her worst days. "You know, most women would be thrilled to have a billionaire personally renovating their workspace," he teased one day as he helped install delicate molding alongside her. "Most women haven't seen you try to use a level," she shot back, the corner of her mouth lifting. "Stick to coding, Thornfield." He grinned, deliberately holding the molding at an incorrect angle. "Make me." Their hands touched as she adjusted his grip, and the electricity between them was undeniable. These moments of lightness became her anchor as the treatments grew more grueling. Still, Sarah maintained emotional distance, convinced that letting James too close would only hurt him when the inevitable happened. The holiday season arrived, bringing with it a critical juncture in Sarah's treatment and the restoration project. The doctors reported cautious optimism about her response to the therapy, but Sarah remained pragmatic. At the partially completed Thornfield Building, they prepared for a small ceremony to mark the installation of the rebuilt grand staircase, architectural feature Sarah had poured her heart into recreating. On the evening of the ceremony, Sarah arrived early to find the space transformed. Thousands of tiny lights illuminated the staircase, creating the illusion that it was floating. And at its base stood James, more formally dressed than she'd ever seen him, holding a single white rose. "What is this?" she asked, her voice barely audible. "This is me," refusing to give up, he said simply, crossing to her and offering the rose. "The doctors called me today." Sarah's heart nearly stopped. "James, please, whatever they said. The treatment is working, Sarah. Your latest scans show the tumor is shrinking. There's a real chance now. Can't look away." This story has more emotional twists coming. Hit subscribe so you don't miss what happens next. She took an unsteady step backward. "Even if that's true, it doesn't change who we are. I'm still me, practical, difficult, set in my ways. And you're you, young, with your whole life ahead of you." James closed the distance between them. "Yes, I'm young enough to know that when you find someone who makes your world make sense, you don't let them go because of something as meaningless as a birth date. It's not just about age. I've been alone my whole life. I don't know how to be anything else." "Then let me show you," he whispered, and before she could protest further, he was kissing her with a tenderness that broke through every wall she'd built. Sarah's recovery and the building's restoration progressed in tandem through winter into spring. There were setbacks with both: a week where her treatment had to be suspended due to complications, an unexpected structural issue that required redesign. Through it all, James remained steadfast, his unwavering belief in both projects carrying them forward when doubt crept in. The most difficult moment came when Sarah's estranged sister arrived, having somehow learned of her illness. Caroline's appearance resurrected painful family history Sarah had never shared with James. "You always thought you were better than us," Caroline accused during a tense dinner at Sarah's apartment. "Running off to your fancy education, changing your name, pretending you came from money when we both know about the trailer park." James watched Sarah's face pale. "Caroline, that's enough," he said firmly. "Oh, she hasn't told you?" Caroline's smile was venomous. "Our mother was an addict. Our father left when Sarah, or should I say Susie, was 12. She reinvented herself completely. Everything about her is a carefully constructed lie." Sarah stood abruptly. "I think you should leave." After Caroline stormed out, the silence between Sarah and James was deafening. Finally, he spoke. "Why didn't you tell me?" "Because I've spent my entire life running from that past," she admitted, tears forming. "I was ashamed. And I thought if you knew where I really came from, how I grew up, you wouldn't see me the same way." James crossed to her, taking her hands. "Sarah, everyone has parts of themselves they try to hide. But you don't need to hide from me. I love every version of you, past, present, and future. Even the broken parts," she whispered. "Especially those," he said. "Because they made you who you are." As spring blossomed into summer, a milestone approached: the grand reopening of the Thornfield Building. The night before the ceremony, James brought Sarah to the rooftop garden they designed together, now lush with new plantings. Under a canopy of stars, with the city lights spread before them, he dropped to one knee. "I had a whole speech prepared," he said, his characteristic confidence momentarily faltering. "About how you taught me that the most beautiful things are those that have weathered storms and been carefully restored. About how loving you has changed me in ways I never expected. But all I really need to say is this: Sarah Miller, will you marry me?" Sarah looked down at the man before her, younger in years but somehow older in soul, and at the ring he held, a vintage piece he'd had restored rather than buying something new. The symmetry wasn't lost on her. For so long, she'd believed her life was ending, only to discover it was just beginning. For so long, she'd used age as an excuse to keep love at bay. "People will talk," she said softly. "They'll say you could do better than a woman 13 years older." "Let them talk," he replied. "We know the truth, that some loves are worth waiting for, fighting for, no matter when they come into our lives. If this story has touched your heart, please share it with someone who needs to hear that love comes in unexpected packages." The Thornfield Building's grand reopening coincided with Sarah's final treatment. As she stood beside James, cutting the ribbon on the magnificently restored landmark, her doctor called with the news they'd been hoping for: complete remission. The journey wasn't over, there would be regular checkups, the possibility of recurrence, but for now, life stretched before them with possibilities neither had dared to imagine a year earlier. Their wedding took place in the Thornfield Building's ballroom 3 months later. As Sarah walked down the aisle, she passed faces that had become dear to her: James's family who had welcomed her without reservation, colleagues who had supported her through illness, even her sister Caroline, with whom a fragile reconciliation had begun. At the altar, James waited, his eyes never leaving hers. "You said once that some things can't be restored once they're broken," he whispered as she reached him. "I think we've proven that theory wrong." "We have," she agreed, her smile radiant. "Some things come back stronger in the broken places." As they exchanged vows beneath the chandelier that now gleamed with renewed splendor, Sarah reflected on the journey that had brought them here. A terminal diagnosis that had seemed like an ending had instead been the beginning. Her attempt to push James away because of their age difference had only drawn him closer, proving that true love transcends such artificial boundaries. Later, at the reception, James pulled her onto the dance floor for their first dance. "No regrets?" he asked, spinning her beneath the lights. "Just one," she replied. "That I wasted so much time thinking I was too old for happiness, too broken for love." "We have all the time in the world now," he said, drawing her closer. And as they danced, surrounded by the beauty they had restored together, Sarah finally allowed herself to believe it was true. Age was indeed just a number. What mattered wasn't the years between them, but the life they would build together, a life more beautiful for having been almost lost, more precious for being unexpected, and more powerful for overcoming every obstacle placed in its path. In the end, their story wasn't about a billionaire who never gave up, it was about two people who learned that love, like the building Sarah restored, doesn't recognize limitations of time or circumstance. It simply finds a way to endure, to rebuild, to become something even more magnificent than before. If this story moved you, please like and subscribe. Sometimes life's greatest gifts come wrapped in unexpected packages, and the love we think we're too old, too broken, or too different to deserve is exactly the love we need most.